So I was apprehensive going into Toy Story 5. I love the first three films. Like, truly, truly love those three films. It's one of the few perfect trilogies, in my opinion. In fact, it's only that and the Before trilogy where I've rated all three films in a trilogy 5 stars. I think it's absolute. I think they're great. I think they're all absolutely fantastic. The fourth film, I think, is good. I like the fourth film. I remember it being funny, but I also remember thinking that it didn't live up to the standard of the first three. So going into the fifth one, I was always a bit like, "No, I don't know if we need it." And seeing the trailer, I wasn't too, you know, on board with the concept. It felt too like as a concept of like toys versus iPads. It felt a bit too like ham-fisted. But a bit of faith was it bestowed upon me when finding out that Andrew Stanton was the director of this specific film, and he's a pretty seasoned Pixar director, and he was one of the early creatives involved with the first Toy Story. So he's not like a stranger. He's actually been there with the franchise from the very beginning. So, and I was always like, I'll give it a go. And I don't mind Toy Story 5. I think it's good. I don't know exactly where I stand on a full-fledged opinion. It's been a week since I've seen it, and I haven't really had many strong feelings about it. There's plenty of stuff in it that I like. There's plenty of stuff in it that I didn't like. One thing that I did like about this film was the fact that Jessie is the main character in this film. Obviously, Jessie is a very pivotal point from the second film onwards. And I like that this film gives her center stage. And I think as like a character within these sets of films, she's always been a very interesting point. Again, her introduction within Toy Story 2 is very pivotal. And I think there's a lot of interesting stuff about her. The one thing and by the way, warning, I am going to talk spoilers about Toy Story 5, so if you haven't seen the film, get out of here. One thing I was worried about was like, are we just going to do some random like thing about like, and then we meet Jessie's old owner, but grown up, and we don't, but we do return to her house, like the old house, which is a nice little thing, I think. Yeah, no, I'll get things out that I wasn't fussed on. How about that? And then maybe we'll find a rhythm in this thing. I think that what this film faults in a bit is that it rushes things too quickly. As in, the first act is just like, and now this scene, now this scene, now this. Now we need to introduce the lily pad, and now everyone doesn't like the lily pad, and now we need to introduce the. Now we need to bring Woody back, and then throw everyone else out, and then bring Woody back, and now we need to do this. Now we need to do this. Now we need to do this. By the time we get to the second and third act, the film has a nicer pace to it. But for that first act, it does feel like we're rushing so much. And yeah, I don't know, man. And also on the topic of a Woody introduction in this film, I don't think Woody was needed at all. In my opinion, the fact that the fourth film was meant to be a goodbye to Woody, how the directors of the creative team of Toy Story 4 were vocal about saying that the third film was a goodbye to Andy, the fourth film was a goodbye to Woody. So why are we bringing Woody back in the fifth film? Apart from just having some slapstick with Buzz. And it's good slapstick, and it's good comedic stuff, and it's, you know, as a fan of this franchise, it's fun to see Woody and Buzz be Woody and Buzz, and have Tom Hanks and Tim Allen do those voices. But also, considering we had a big emotional send-off for Woody in the last film, why are we just bringing them back in this film so casually? Like, he's still in contact with Jessie via walkie-talkie. I thought the whole point was he's gone. And I think, especially for what this film gives us, I don't think Woody adds any more to the film. In fact, I think he just should have not been in here. I think Jessie had the film pretty much fine. I think Buzz had the film pretty much fine. And just to have Woody in there just feels like, we've got a Toy Story film. We've got to have Woody in there. I don't know, especially since you said goodbye to him in the last film. What was the point? Wasn't necessarily a fan of that. One thing I did enjoy, I enjoyed the style of this film. I don't know. Again, I haven't seen Toy Story 4 since the cinema. But I remember not being so in love with how high quality the animation was in Toy Story 4. Like the toys just looked like there was an odd uncanniness about them. Whereas with Toy Story 5, I don't know if it's just I'm now used to it or if they changed it up a little bit, but it felt animated. It didn't feel uncanny. And also a thing I enjoyed visually about this film was how when the toys were being played with and they were like, and there would be a scenario like the wedding, for example, like Forky's wedding or whatever, there would be this really cool stylistic hand-drawn look to the animation. And then we would hard cut to like Bonnie playing with them or whatever. That was fun. That I like that. I enjoyed that. I think what this film at least does, and what I was at least worried about, and there's bits in this film that I'm a bit like it feels a bit too ham-fisted. My worries were still met in the sense of like technology bad, iPad kids bad. Don't put screens in front of your children. That's bad. We need to have toys be better. And for a good chunk of the film, it does that, and it is kind of preachy. But at the same time, I'm looking at that like, as an adult, it feels really like, yeah, I get it. I know. But I also think, but it doesn't feel so spoon-feedy that if it's a kid watching it, I think that they'll watch the film and be like, oh yeah, I get it, kind of thing. I just feel like as an adult, it feels a bit too force-fed. Which is a bit of a shame, because I think the Toy Story films as a whole communicate well to adults and children, as well as the best Pixar films as a whole. And I think the film, Toy Story 5, just doesn't quite do that. It feels a bit, as I said, it feels a bit too spoon-feedy. But one thing I do like about this film is its optimism, and it still has a charm to it. It doesn't feel sickly sweet. The Toy Story films never do, I don't think. And I think Toy Story 5 still continues on with that. Like, it doesn't feel like it's trying to be so optimistic and positive. And again, there is a happy ending to this film, obviously. And unlike many of the other Toy Story films where they defeat the villain, like the villain is defeated, Lily Pad does end up being good. And Lily Pad does end up being on the better side of it all. And the film does end with, like, toys and technology coexisting, which is nice. And it is a nice feeling. It's a nice, fun thing for kids. But also, as an adult, it is still nice. But I don't know, like, and I enjoy Bonnie as a character. I think she's like how Andy was a good character and a good almost like pinpoint in terms of like what a boy would be like, whether it be in the 90s and then later on when he's going off to college, like, and his relationship with toys. I think Bonnie is that currently. Like, she is a good character for the toys to be a part of, to be involved in. And she's not annoying. She's not an annoying child. She is endearing. She is adorable. You do want the best for her as a viewer. Yeah. And in this film specifically, I enjoyed the inclusion of Blaze as well. Again, not an annoying character. I'm not rolling my eyes at all at these children. And especially Blaze. I think Blaze could have been she could have been dangerously close to being annoying. But she's not. She is endearing. She is creative. But she also feels like she belongs. She doesn't just feel like... She doesn't feel manic pixie dream child. She feels like, she's a fun, wacky, little weird kid. That by the end of it, I am happy that Bonnie is friends with her. And if they do a Toy Story 6, which I think they will, I think there's talks about they wanted to finish, how Andy had a trilogy, they want to give Bonnie a trilogy, which, fine, sure. And if Blaze is involved with that, I would be fine with that. But yeah, no, I think the film, it gets dangerously close to being crying bait. Like, it really wants you to cry. And I feel like, a lot of Pixar films, again in the 2000s, didn't need to try to do that. They just kind of were well written and they were good. Whereas, like, I think a lot of Pixar films recently have really felt like more like, how are we going to make this one, like, emotional? And I think Toy Story 5 really wants you to be emotional. And there's moments where it's like, oh, that's touching. But I don't know, like, it doesn't quite land for me on an emotional beat. Like, I'm not, like, on the brink. Like, the film wants you to be really emotional, but I never felt that swept up in this film enough to be involved with that. And I think that, like, I don't know, like, I'm a week removed from the film, and I don't have many strong opinions about it. I don't have much strong feelings. I'll watch it again, but I was saying this to some friends that, like, the biggest thing about the post Toy Story 3, so Toy Story 4 and Toy Story 5, they just feel like feature length spin-off films. Like, like the short films are like, oh, they're fun. These just feel like feature-length version of those. Like, they almost don't feel like they are carrying... It almost doesn't feel like they're in the same canon as the trilogy. There's just something about them that just feels very, I don't know, inconsequential. And just kind of like, yeah, this is... Like, they're not bad. They're not bad films, but they just don't feel like they have the weight. I don't know. I might need to rewatch them again in full. But, I don't know, Toy Story 5 is fine. It's good. I like it. I'll watch it again. But it hasn't really been sticking with me. And I think that's the most unfortunate thing about this film. Because especially when talking about the Toy Story films, again, the first 3 films, they still stick with me to this day. I rewatched the first one, like, yesterday with my niece. And that film still has so much joy. And there's still a lot of scenes that really do hit with me. And it says a lot. Because there's, like, again, as a child, I remember loving that film. And being really involved. And loving the style. And feeling really attached to the characters. But now as a 31-year-old, I'm watching Toy Story 1. And then I'm really getting on board. And I'm getting really, like, attached to Buzz having an existential crisis. And Woody and Buzz having... button heads and having this really, beautiful friendship thing. And as an adult watching Toy Story 5, I'm not feeling much draw as an adult. It really does enlighten my inner child. I will say that Toy Story 5 really does that for me. But as an adult, it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't do a lot. It doesn't do a lot more for me. But I'll give it a watch, and I'll give it another watch at some point. I'll see how I feel. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Toy Story 5. What do you think of the film? Comment below. Let me know. If you like the video, give it a like, give it a share. Make sure to subscribe to the channel to see much more reviews of mine on this channel. Links in the description below for the Crazy Stupid Kino Instagram page, as well as my own Instagram page and my Letterboxd account. You can click on more videos to the side here. And until next time, I shall see you later.